It's your boy Crypto Blood, and welcome to another episode of Double Spend. Today we're going to look at the Bloomberg video interview clip. They were interviewing some lady. I don't know where they got this lady. Excuse me for my ignorance if she's someone very known in the financial markets, but it didn't seem that way. She was talking about Bitcoin and the reason why it was bouncing back off the lows, and we'll talk about that. So first, I want to give a shout out to my man Chaos for the song request. Juvenile Bounce Back, no pun intended, featuring Baby. I remember this joint, was a classic. But again, thanks Chaos for the song request. And this was actually a few weeks ago, a few weeks ago. So what's going on, people? Again, we're going to do a double spin today. I want to get your feedback on this interview, this clip from an interview on Bloomberg. What do you guys think? Are we actually bouncing back because of the semi-bullish stance that the regulators in the U.S. have had over the last week or so from the meetings they've had? Or do you think it's just purely kind of a coincidence, a correlation with technicals? Because, I mean, technically, from a technical standpoint, I think that's why we bounced off of where we did. We really couldn't go any lower technically. So you guys have to let me know. Before we watch that, let's take a look at the actual technicals. So as I've told you guys, we saw us, and this line has been drawn for weeks. We bounced off of that. Couldn't get past it on the first attempt. Came back down, regained some strength, and blew right through 10,200. And now I see this as a strong support area for us now. So we should not go under 10,200. And from here, really, if I zoom back out, this dotted trend line going from left to right on your screen should now be the new support, not necessarily 10,200. So as time progresses, we should see, I'm just going to draw really quickly, it should look something like this as time progresses. So the dotted line should now be the support. So check out this this clip and let me know your thoughts, people. I don't think it was really regulator sentiment driven, this bounce off the lows. You guys let me know, because we bounced off before this meeting last week or earlier this week anyway. But check it out, let me know your thoughts. I'm out.
What does that mean, Camilla?
Well, what really sparked this rebound was last week there was a Senate hearing on cryptocurrencies, and SEC and CFTC heads adopted a very do no harm approach, which means they said, okay, we're watching the space, investors need protection, but they didn't indicate that there was a strong hardline ban in consideration at all. More of like a wait and see approach. So that really, sparked more optimism in the sector.
So what's the timeline now? Because that was just a hearing, sort of to talk about it. Do we know if there is going to be some kind of increased regulation? And if so, when are we maybe going to hear about it?
There isn't an exact timeline in the works, but what we started to see end of last year, beginning of this year, was just an increased crackdown on ICOs that the SEC considered to be breaking securities regulations. So we might start seeing more of that, because so far we've only seen a handful. I think it's been only 3 ICOs that whose funds were seized, and that's a very, very small number considering the amount of money that's been raised, and the percentage of that which might be in largely violating securities regulations, probably. And besides, on the U.S. side, we saw negative headlines subsiding from the rest of the world. I mean, beginning of this year, we saw really big negative news from South Korea and China saying they're considering banning ICOs completely or restricting trading even further, and those headlines have subsided.
down, player, you a dog. I'm a real nigga, I ain't gonna stop accepting your phone call.